Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're the person who unlocks the front doors at 6 a.m. while the rest of the city is still fast asleep, this is absolutely for you. If you're the one managing the cash wrap when the register completely freezes on a Saturday afternoon, or you're pacing the floor listening to the walkie-talkie chatter, just making sure your team holds it together during a massive holiday rush, I'm speaking directly to you right now. Today, we're not talking about some high-level theory from an executive boardroom, and we're definitely not looking at spreadsheets made by someone who hasn't stepped foot on a sales floor in a decade. We're talking trenches. We're getting into the gritty, totally unpredictable reality of running a retail floor. Because, as you know as well as I do, retail is wild. You go through the corporate training, you've got that massive heavy operational binder sitting back in the office. But what happens when the very loud, very real situation happening right in front of your face doesn't match a single page in that binder? Well, today, we're going to break down an essential survival guide for those exact panic-inducing moments.
So, set the scene with me for a second. It's a slammed weekend, you're standing right in the middle of the floor, and a situation abruptly unfolds. Maybe it's a super complicated customer return that defies all logic, or a bizarre dispute between two guests, or, I don't know, a weird logistical hiccup with a third-party vendor whose truck literally just blocked your loading dock. The customer is staring directly at you, visibly frustrated. Your newest associate is looking at you, wide-eyed, basically just waiting for you to save the day. The line behind them is getting restless. You can literally hear the heavy sighs and the tapping shoes, right? Instantly, your brain defaults to your training. You're mentally flipping through the standard operating procedure, the SOP. But here's the terrifying part. The scenario playing out right now, it isn't in there. You are officially standing in the gray area. This is the ultimate test of a retail leader. So what do you do when the answer just isn't in the binder? Do you freeze? Do you panic? Or do you just reflexively say no because there isn't a specific yes written down for you to point at?
We constantly face this massive tug-of-war on the floor. In one corner, you've got strict policy, the rulebook. And hey, let's be fair, we love the rulebook. Policies exist for a really good reason. They keep operations smooth, they prevent total chaos, they manage shrink, and they make sure things are consistent across hundreds of stores. But then, in the other corner, you have human judgment, the reality. The truth is, a lot of managers end up just hiding behind strict policy. When that super uncomfortable gray area hits, they use the SOP as a literal shield. They cross their arms and say, look, I'm sorry, policy says I can't do that. And why do we do this? Well, because it's incredibly safe. If you point to the rulebook, nobody can blame you. Corporate isn't going to write you up for following the manual to the letter. But we have to step back and ask ourselves, what does it actually cost the business when we robotically say no just to protect ourselves? Honestly, it costs us trust. It costs us our local reputation. And most importantly, it costs us the customer. The daily reality of the floor absolutely demands human judgment, and hiding behind a binder, it actually prevents you from truly leading your store.
Now, when Chris Albury's Built from the Aisles Up, a retail leadership survival guide, Chapter 4 hits this tension perfectly. It's simply titled, Not Everything is SOP. Albury writes, and I love this, not everything is in the manual. Sometimes you have to make judgment calls in the gray area, and that's what you're paid to do. I really want to let that sink in for a second. You are paid to make judgment calls. Albury backs this up with a brilliant real-world story. A customer walked into his store wanting to return a damaged item. But, and here's the kicker, there was no receipt. We all know the drill here, right? Strict policy in almost every single retail environment on Earth dictates a hard, undeniable no. No receipt plus damaged goods equals transaction denied. But Albury notes that in this specific moment, his judgment said yes. Why? Because he actually recognized the customer. He understood the context of the situation and the genuine frustration of the human being standing across the counter. He consciously decided to step out of the binder, bypass that default no, and just process the return so they could all move forward.
So what was the actual outcome of that seemingly risky judgment call? Well, as Albury points out, that customer is still shopping with us today. Boom. This right here is exactly why human judgment matters, and it highlights the massive difference between a one-off transaction and a long-term relationship. I mean, think about the math for a second. If that manager had simply folded their arms and rigidly cited the return policy, what would have happened? They probably would have saved the store, what, 20, 30 bucks on a damaged item that day? Sure, a tiny win for the daily ledger, but they would have lost a lifetime of future purchases from a local regular. They would have lost thousands of dollars in lifetime value over a $20 technicality. The long-term relationship was saved precisely because the leader on the floor read the situation, read the human being in front of them, and didn't just blindly read the rulebook. Taking that short-term hit to secure the long-term loyalty, that is the very definition of retail leadership.
So here is a fundamental mindset shift that every great manager eventually makes. SOP is the floor, not the ceiling. I really want you to internalize this concept. The manual is just your baseline. It's the foundational blueprint for how the store operates on a perfectly normal Tuesday when absolutely everything goes to plan, which, let's face it, is rare. But the best retail leaders, the ones who drive incredible loyalty, the ones who keep their teams super motivated and their turnover low, they know those policies cold. And they know them cold precisely so they know exactly when it's appropriate to rise above them. If you treat the SOP as your ceiling, you severely limit your ability to solve complex problems. You basically turn your staff into unthinking robots who just regurgitate corporate speak. You limit your team's ability to genuinely serve your local community. Knowing the rules isn't about being restricted by them. It's about understanding the framework so deeply that you know exactly when the moment calls for something more, something profoundly human.
Of course, if you're working the floor right now, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds awesome in theory, but how do I actually flex these rules without getting fired by my district manager? Like, how do you develop the judgment to know when to bend the policy, and what does a good gray area decision actually look like? Well, our source material gives us the exact formula to navigate this safely. Whenever you find yourself stuck in that gray area, just run your potential decision through 3 distinct steps. Step 1. Does this decision align with your core values? Is it the right thing to do for the person standing in front of you? Let's say a customer needs a massive exception for delayed shipment right before a huge life event, like a wedding. The policy says no refunds on third-party shipping delays, but your values say, hey, we promised this would be here and we failed. Step 2. Does it protect the business? Bending a policy to express ship a replacement at the store's expense might cost you $50 today, but it saves a massive VIP account and prevents a viral negative review. It protects future revenue. Now, giving away the whole store to a scammer obviously doesn't. You gotta weigh the risk. Step 3. Does it protect the team? Actually, scratch that. This one is completely non-negotiable. You never, ever make a call that throws your hardworking associates under the bus. You don't override an associate's correct application of policy just to play the hero and make them look foolish. Instead, you step in, you validate their work, and then you explain that as the manager, you're making a one-time leadership exception, taking the heat entirely on your own shoulders. If your gray area decision successfully hits these 3 criteria, it aligns with values, protects the long-term business, and protects the team, you can confidently justify that call to any district manager or corporate office. You aren't going rogue, you're making an informed, protected leadership decision.
Which brings us to the ultimate survival tip from Albury's guide. SOP is a guide, not a cage. Know when to follow it and when to flex it. Think about the psychological difference between those 2 words for a second. A cage locks you in, it prevents movement, it totally strips you of your autonomy. If you view your corporate binder as a cage, you're going to feel trapped and helpless every single time a unique customer situation pops up. And that feeling of helplessness, that's exactly what leads to chronic burnout and high turnover among retail leaders. You just end up feeling like a mindless policy enforcer rather than a dynamic leader. But a guide points you in the right direction while still allowing you to choose your exact footsteps along the path. You have to empower yourself to view operations manuals as supportive tools, kind of like a compass. Follow them to keep the store running efficiently 99% of the time, for sure, but be confident enough in your own retail instincts to flex them when the situation desperately demands a human touch. That is how you survive and ultimately thrive on the floor.
We've covered a lot of crucial ground today, diving deep into that very real tension between corporate policy and frontline reality. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to take into your next shift. The next time you find yourself standing in the middle of a chaotic store, squarely in the gray area, with literally everyone looking directly at you for an answer, will you read the rulebook or will you read the room? Remember, the rulebook doesn't run the store. You do. Trust the human judgment you are paid to use. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. And hey, good luck out there on the floor.